our Chef Brittany at Home Appliance in Avon. We're making some brown butter bourbon oatmeal cookies. So as far as browning butter, basically what we're doing is we're melting it. It's nice to use a pan that doesn't have a black lining. That way we can really see the color as it changes. It takes a couple of minutes. Basically we'll be melting it down. We'll kind of smell a little bit of a toastiness because what we're doing is browning the milk fat solids that are in the butter, and we'll want to watch for that color change because as soon as we smell that toastiness and we see that color change, we're going to want to remove it from the heat. So I'm going to turn it down to just a medium heat right now. Since it's already started to melt, we don't want it to pop. All right, while that's melting down and starting to brown, we're going to get our dry ingredients mixed together. It might look like a lot because I don't really like to make cookies unless I'm doubling the recipe. Why would we do that? All right, so we've got some spices. We have some nutmeg, some allspice, a little bit of ground ginger, cinnamon, some salt. We're also gonna go ahead and get our baking soda right into the flour. We always wanna whisk it into our dry ingredients. That way we don't end up with any clumps of it in anything. I like to use a whisk for the same reason, just to get out any clumps of flour. This is gonna be a nice oatmeal cookie recipe, so we are gonna go ahead and get our oats mixed into this. But we'll just use our wooden spoon so that we don't get caught in our whisk. It's nice to have everything pre-measured, especially when we're doing a step like browning the butter, so that way we don't have that moment where we realize that we forgot something or that we have to go across the kitchen into another pantry and grab something out. In this bowl we have granulated sugar, we have light brown sugar and dark brown sugar, which will give us add even extra layers of flavor in here. We have a really good amount of vanilla extract, some Maker's Mark bourbon, and then we are also using both whole eggs and egg whites. I'm sorry, yolks. We're using the yolks. We get rid of the whites because adding in a couple extra egg yolks actually adds some richness, and as you can tell kind of by the rest of our ingredients, we're really going for a rich and deep flavored cookie here. So our butter is pretty much melted. You can see that it's started to foam on the top, which means that the milk fat solids are starting to separate from the liquid. So it's just another minute or so away from browning. It is a good time to start keeping it moving. That way we don't get any hot spots, and it's really easy to burn at this point. So keeping it moving helps to kind of avoid that. When thinking about oatmeal cookies, I know a lot of the time we think about raisins and cranberries and things like that, which is why I wanted to get this brown butter in, because once you start browning butter for cookies and pastas and things like that, we'll never leave it yellow again. All right, we're gonna let this go one more minute. I'm starting to smell a little bit of a change. We can't see too much as far as the color yet, but right about another minute. Once it starts to get really foamy and gets that nice golden color underneath, we're very close. Once we get it nice and toasted, what we'll do is we'll move it to just a glass bowl and let it cool down. And basically what we want it to do is solidify to room temperature so that we're starting off with what we would be using if we had just pulled butter out of the fridge for a regular cookie recipe. I can see the top of this foam starting to toast a little bit. We're gonna go ahead and turn off the heat and come back in a few minutes. All right, we're back for oatmeal cookies. So check out our butter. It has solidified to room temperature, and those browned bits are those little nuggets of goodness that we're looking for from all that time we spent browning butter and cooling it. So we're gonna toss this into our mixer, and at this point we're treating it just like any other kind of cookie recipe where we cream the butter and the sugars together. We want to get them nice and light and fluffy, and then we'll be adding in our bourbon and vanilla and eggs, and always our last step is to add in the dry ingredients. As soon as you add flour to liquid, you start to create gluten strands. And when you create gluten strands, we start to get some toughness. And so the more that you mix, the tighter those bonds become, which is why we need dough for bread. But when you see a recipe that says mix until just combined for a cookie or a cake or a quick bread, it's because they don't want you to overdevelop those gluten strands. You'll end up with one tough cookie. All right, so we're gonna cream these. All right. So I'm gonna let this go about 2 or 3 minutes until it's nice and light and fluffy. We'll add in our eggs and our other liquids that are dry, and we'll come back to get these in the oven. All right, so we have some nice fluffy butter and sugars here. We're gonna go ahead and add in all of our eggs. I like to give it a quick mix before adding in so much extra liquid, just to make sure that it's combined. Plus, we don't want to lose any bourbon. So we'll just lightly incorporate our eggs and our egg yolks. And as soon as those are pretty well mixed, we'll go ahead and get all that vanilla extract in. And the other secret ingredient. And we want to make sure that we really turn it on very low so we're not getting this splashed all over us. The story driving home never works when you get pulled over and you say, I was just baking cookies, and vanilla and bourbon got splashed all over me. Alright, so we want to get past that point where it looks a little bit curdy. Perfect. At this point, I usually will add about half of my dry ingredients to start, incorporate that, and then add the rest. So we've got our spices, our flour, our oats, and our baking soda in here. And again, you want to start on low. Give it a quick mix, and then we'll add the rest. So these are going to bake at 325. Depending on the size of the cookie that you go for, we're going to do probably about 1.5 to 2 inch pieces, and that will take between 12 and 15 minutes. We're going to be baking at convection, so we'll be right at 325 for probably right about 13 minutes. Alright, so check out our cookies. The store smells good, they taste awesome. We have more in the oven, and we are going to be freezing some. So on March 19th, you can come in and have yourself an oatmeal cookie on National Oatmeal Cookie Day. Thanks.